And this is useful, except perhaps to lose, it does not help the electorate to distinguish the right choice from the point of view of superiority. Talking about people's laziness does not justify our arrogance. What proves our pride is what we actually say about ourselves and what we show in practice. Being yourself is not only disparaging what other people do, but also being accepted by doing what is appropriate for yourself. Our society is very hesitant to accept and trust something of its own choosing, and if it is from another area or overseas, it rushes to accept it without investigating. This is one of the most useless habits. For example, it is known that the so-called political philosophy or philosophy of our country was mostly imported from foreign countries. But when an important idea comes from the country of origin, he is not ready to accept it even though he knows it is important. It is because of lack of self-confidence. It is known that in the past 3 or 4 years, since the addition of our Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, books on politics have been published in the market. It can be said that, surprisingly, it got the most appropriate coverage by the government media and the party members, but not by other media and private media. The reason for this is that the content of the book is known to be very clear and useful, but it is sad to say that it did not create a favorable environment to be received by many because it did not come from abroad. The basic reasons are also known, which is that our society has a very low desire to respect and accept something that is its own, so I have no doubt that it misses many important things. It's just that the situation is different at the individual level as well as at the country level. If we look at the individual level, there is not much room for an important idea that comes from the owner of the house. It is a public secret that we have an obsession with spreading information that we do not know the source of, instead of accepting the actual facts. This is why the spreaders of false reports flood many people with rumors in a short period of time. It is not only the reporters who should take responsibility for the false report and its consequences, but also the listeners. This is because many people do not want to listen to the reports from the regular media, which are supported by a lot of information. This situation is something that the human ear wants to hear. Terrifying watchman, whether or not I hear rumors, it's too late to chase things that don't make sense. This is why even the mainstream media started presenting their reports by focusing only on the things that people want to hear. It is not appropriate to spoil the big picture by presenting a report that focuses on a certain group, but it can be considered as an alternative that contains important ideas for the country's politics, which is useful for all citizens to listen to. It is believed that a society defeated by hypocrisy and hypocrisy is difficult to selectively listen and selectively accept. Therefore, the media should not go to them, but encourage them to come to the media in different ways. The main thing is to follow the crowd. It is not fair to conclude that something is right or wrong just because many have followed it and a good few have not. Everyone should have a position that says it is right or wrong according to their own point of view. To do that, you need to be yourself. A person who is not himself always respects the choice of the crowd and never has his own choice. In an environment where there is no self-selection, neither balance nor rationality can exist. People can take proper responsibility for their own decisions, not by following the crowd, but only when they are able to support their own position with reason. Although the effort to be you is not accepted by many people, the main thing is to be yourself, not to get the approval of the masses. A person who struggles to be he is bound to deal with a lot of criticism for a while, so it is a very supportive position not to give room for criticism, but to always do what he believes to be right. Many of us want to be ourselves, but we can't be. Although doing so is expected for the time being, it is not appropriate for our own happiness to come in order to make people happy all the time. The mistake of all mistakes is the act of making everyone happy. A person who tries to please everyone will spend his whole life in vain without being able to please the people and himself. There is no one on this earth who can always please people completely, so we have to stand our ground as much as we can and allow things to continue in their balance. Self-being wisely, there is an occasional tendency to be self-conscious among many, but they are marginalized and pushed away by the society because it is not common in the society to be oneself but to follow the crowd. When a person who tries to be he is found, he is less accepted. In order to maintain that balance, it is necessary to be clever. One day, showing unusual behavior to the society can bring its own problems, so it is necessary to be careful. We can live with people and be ourselves in a way that does not affect our social participation. Avoiding unnecessary chaos by agreeing only on important things, and trying to create a positive impact if possible, it is not recommended to be completely self-absorbed. It is possible to inculcate our own good attitude and self-worth in society, not by isolating oneself from the society, but by being able to be in the society. In the past, when the foreigner came to our country for different missions, this was also the way they did it. They entered into the community without being far away from the community and gradually changed to their own habits after experiencing the culture and lifestyle of the community. If they can do that when their number is small and their skin color is different from the people of the country, how can the people of the country not easily practice the good things to the masses? The main thing is to change you, but people can be changed in many ways. Since society is inherently innovative, it will not be difficult to get used to new ideas even for a while. The problem is that when something else happens, be it useful or not, it will inevitably show the tendency to accept it and make it one's own. The only way to reduce this practice is to train people to find a compelling reason for everything they do. For example, the practice of seeing a neighbor and doing what the neighbor did is not encouraged, that it is not good to buy things that many people buy just because people buy them without interest. We have to see and record something and evaluate it from the point of view of its advantages and disadvantages. How do I protect my belongings? It is common to see two types of things standing on the edge. One side believes that if it is only mine, the other side does not need everything, and the other side believes that everything that is mine is not right, and everything that belongs to other people is right. The desire to be oneself is not cooperating with either group and being able to combine things that are considered important from both and use them for one's own needs. Getting something useful from both of them means that we can get good things from both of them, from ourselves and others, without the need to push them all away. This means that it shows us that it is possible to get useful things from others, and trying to use them by combining them with our own useful things. Instead of trying to get away from one to the other, we can lose the benefits that we should have received from both. Therefore, the question of how to protect my things is answered in this way, not by leaving one and hanging on the other. It should be well known that there is no permanent good or permanent bad in this world. If it is necessary to choose one of the two, there is no need to make the choice permanent and unchangeable. It is important to understand that things need to be looked at in a balanced way, as it is not recommended to stick to just one choice, as we are in an era where rapid change is very much accepted. When we are preparing for everything, our thinking should be focused on the benefits we get from things, not following the needs of the masses and doing what many have done. Trying to make it our own without understanding it sets back our desire to be ourselves. It is important to be careful not to do so. Because people do not have the power to think and decide for themselves, following others and always repeating what people have done will lead to failure. It is very important to think separately because there is no body that benefit from being attached. Chapter 4. Your Identity Acceptance. Whether a person wants it or not, it is inevitable that he will be with himself. However, living with you is not about fully accepting yourself. A person lives with himself for centuries without accepting himself. There are many indications that living with oneself does not mean accepting oneself. Among them, it includes living a life of your own while wishing to be like other people. But living that way is not self-acceptance. Self-acceptance means being able to accept yourself without flaws. Blemishes include things that people have given us and what we have given ourselves. Accepting yourself is not the identity that people give us, but the identity that we believe we are. People sometimes choose a name that we don't want and want to call us by that name. And because of the number of repetitions, we accept that name that is not ours and make it our own. The name may also contain a derogatory insult. At first, we try not to accept the name because of its abomination, but after some time, we think that it is our own, and when they call us by that name, we say sorry. But we hate his name. However, accepting yourself or your identity should be a label that you like to be called and are willing to accept. Although our first name is given to us from our childhood by our parents or guardians, we may or may not be like our name. For example, many people name their children Million to express their desire for wealth. But they don't see themselves becoming millionaires following their son's name. Parents or guardians choose names that are convenient for themselves and do not care much about the convenience of their child. However, it is inevitable to be called by that name. As is the case with promotion, there is also a change of name. This conversion comes from not liking that name and not wanting to be called by it. If it is possible to change the names given by the parents, how can it be easy to not accept the names given to us by people without our will? It is important to realize that accepting identity does not mean accepting the names people have given us without our consent. Accepting identity means the identity we have given ourselves. If we are willing to be called by the identity people give us, it is important to know that we are fulfilling their needs, not our own. It is important to understand that when a person is created, they are free to make their own choices. Therefore, we should understand that it is our right not to accept the identity that others give us without our needs. Just like when parents or guardians name their own needs, when they name others, they keep their own needs in mind. Even if we have to call them by the names they call us when we are not ready to accept or reject them, we have the right to refuse the name after we have reached a decision. Rejecting what we don't want can be part of our efforts to accept ourselves. Because self-acceptance means giving oneself the label one believes in, excluding the labels other people carry. When a person is able to do this, it means that he is ready to accept himself as he is, no matter what. If a person wants to change or improve himself, he must first know his current situation and take the necessary corrective action on it. A person who does not know where he is not ready to change himself or accept change. In order to accept the new identity, it is necessary to properly understand what the old identity was. If not, it's probably because the situation he was in doesn't need any change. Before accepting the new identity, it is important to check the identity that was held. The biggest reason to use this ZDE is because it helps us not to throw away our existing good things just because they are refreshing things. The identity we want may not be found in what people have given us before, but in what comes to us as a new one. If not, we can allow ourselves to be who we love to be. Accepting who you are means first of all accepting the identity that you carry without any hesitation. After that, if it suits the identity you carry, it means to continue with it, and if it doesn't suit, accept it. If it is necessary to serve both choices, it is necessary to separate the previous one in style. This means that if there is something that we have brought to ourselves through practice that we don't want, we need to throw it away after we have confirmed that it is not ours. It is accepting the identity itself, not being the bearer. In general, when we accept our own identity, we accept the identity of others as they agree. In many places, it can be said that not calling people by the identity they want is a source of conflict. Especially if we don't know the meaning of the labels people give us, it complicates the matter. This identity cannot be a name given alone. It is related to something, but it is related to our character, our profession, our appearance, our language, our culture. The identity we choose for ourselves is not only suitable for people, but it is enough if it suits us as long as it does not affect people's interests and dignity. When that is the case, we can walk the path we choose and build our true selves. It means that we are called by the identity that people randomly give us when we have come to the conclusion that we have not been able to build a true identity for ourselves. After we build our identity through our choices, we can force people to call us by that identity. People give us an identity only if we don't have the identity we gave ourselves. When we have a true identity, no one can burden us with an additional identity. Maybe if he can, it's a title, but he can't give us a name that we don't like. When I say accept your identity, it does not mean accepting a burden given to us by somebody, but it means preparing an identity for ourselves that suits us. Our identity is not only limited by name, but we should have an identity that is visible and tangible. This so-called visible and tangible identity should be revealed by work, not just by name. Our work should be our identity, our behavior should be our identity, our profession should be our identity, our communication should be our identity, and our love should be our identity. It is our right not to accept the accounts given to us by people outside of this. Even if something is beneficial, if the receiver does not agree to it, nothing will be enforced by the decision of the giver. If we do not agree to accept what is given to us, it cannot be ours. Therefore, it is necessary to work hard to have a strong identity in order not to be trash of others. That's when we can make a name for ourselves. This is not a name we call ourselves, but we can have an identity written in gold. By knowing where we are. Identifying our goal, it is believed that we can give ourselves our own identity by setting a clear goal for ourselves, and it is also certain that our identity is not given to us by people, but by us who give it to us. If we allow ourselves to be called by what people give us, then the responsibility will be ours, not the people. Therefore, it is important to understand that it is our choice to beautify or spoil our name, that is, to keep it as it is. This label is one name. If our name represents who we are, it is our duty to beautify our name. It is not uncommon to put a name on top of something that others can name. If we don't want people to give us a name that we don't want, it is necessary to beautify our name first. Accepting your identity does not mean that you carry the identity that people give you, but it is like customizing an adjusted identity for yourself. When I say this, I don't mean to reject the identity that we got by nature, but to be able to adjust the identity that is given to us by human beings in our own time. Natural identity does not mean that we are created as a woman to become a woman, but it is the identity that is given to us by the people around us after we are born. It is known that the process exists in the world, although the idea of the book is not about changing the so-called natural identity. The idea that he wanted to convey in the book is to convey the idea that it is possible not to call people by the labels they give us without our consent. This can be done not by being nameless, but by preparing a suitable name for ourselves accompanied by practical work. This acceptance of yourself or who you are is not only deciding not to agree with the labels people give us, but also not trying to make other labels for yourself. In the passage listed above, it is about the description that people give us, but it does not refer to our attempts to take it from people. However, many of us, whether consciously or unconsciously, tend to make our own labels given to us by others. But others' account cannot be our account, so we can adjust our choice. Just because someone has a good reputation, wanting to be called by that name may not mean we will be like them. Maybe we can learn a lot from that person. But beyond that, we cannot be him. No matter how much we imitate him, we cannot be like him. Therefore, it means that we should be able to return the person's identity to the owner in time and underline our own identity. Using people as models can be a starting point for a while, but it cannot sustain us permanently. Because things grow and die, therefore, when the person we modeled dies, we will not die together. Therefore, it is necessary to prepare our own identity in our own water, in our own choice, in our own line, and accept it as our identity. Major fatness owner to be, your fat and works are named by people. Being a fat man is something that requires passion and hard work. Many people may be involved in this fattening. It is mainly done by the owner, but a few people may be involved. For example, family, our first-level leaders, our peers, our religious institution, our fat and work will have a contribution in some way. This is for the fat that grows with us from the beginning and does not apply to the fat that we bring by our choice. Owning and owning fat is the kind of fat that we have inherited from people on various occasions, and we can not only grow it, but we can grow the fat that is important and best for us by our own choice, so that we can have the fat that we like in any situation. What we call our fat or manufactured fat means our fat that we have chosen for ourselves and the kind of water we like. Trans fats are defined in many different ways. To see some of them, it can be seen in social life, professional conduct, personal life principle and in various situations, and it is not possible to hide this situation. Just as it is possible to harm the environment with your unprocessed fat, it is possible to benefit the environment with your saturated fat. Even if a fat man has no desire to do anything on his own time, people can learn a lot from him by watching what he does for himself. People will be happy to have such a person in their neighborhood. Because the children who grow up with that person as an example may have good behavior in a certain way, and it is bound to be confirmed by their indirect benefit. If the customs of the society in such a situation are good, it is believed that a child who grows up in that environment will grow up with good manners. In that situation, the role of individuals will not be easy. Because as mentioned earlier, children are not born with anything when they are born, so they grow up making everything their own in the process of growing up. Good manners can be learned through practice. Just as good things are passed down from person to person, so-called good things get married. But it requires desire, because without desire, there is no marriage of one thing to another, so it is important to show interest in what we want to come to us. People who have been confined to one place for centuries will always have their behavior dependent on that environment. Then, when you see different situations, it becomes difficult for her to accept. What you see is important, but it takes time for her to be ready to accept it. Therefore, moving from one place to another and trying to absorb a variety of experiences helps to gain more knowledge. It is extremely important to have a well-rounded personality. In order to have this built-in fat, we need to beautify our choices. Because our environment is full of things, but not all of them are useful. Therefore, it is a matter of choice and desire to distinguish what is useful from what is not. Not everything that is presented to us is useful, and not everything can be harmful. It is your choice to use it. When there is a choice, we need to be prepared to choose and use it. Chapter 5. Self-reliance. People can have many opinions and anyone can understand our true needs and identity. But what is required is not the testimony of people. The main thing is to be honest with you. A person who trusts himself does not find it difficult to trust people. It is not too difficult to give what he knows to others because he has practiced everything on himself, so he can give the same honesty to others, so being honest with yourself means being honest with people. Trusting yourself does not mean following people's wishes. In general, self-reliance means avoiding the attention given to things, saying that people have seen me or not, people have heard me or not. A person who believes in himself is not noticed when he is always running with the situation. He doesn't wait for someone to tell him what to do and when I'm working. He doesn't work saying whether the boss saw me or not. Whether the boss is there or not is not his concern. A person who believes in himself is often successful. A person who can't be trusted to be compassionate is easily identified by not noticing that he or she is participating in things that are not compulsive. People who do not believe in themselves do not have the priority to attend to the things that have binding conditions, but they are not seen to participate in the truths that do not have binding conditions. Their focus is always to attract people's attention, but self-confident people are advised to obey their inner urges, not to follow external pressures. A man who believes in himself does not violate people's freedom. A person who trusts himself is subject to his conscience and not to others. Most of the time, people who are not honest with themselves think that other people are the same because they live to see everything, and other people think that they will do good things just by looking at them. They feel that people who don't believe in themselves will never back down from being an obstacle to things. People who don't believe in themselves can't think realistically. They think that everything they hear will be ruined if it is not under their control. They think that everything they do not look at closely will perish and spoil. But trusting in oneself will free you from all this trouble. It will not be stolen. It does not hurt people. He doesn't hesitate, he doesn't expect pressure from others to do what he can, he doesn't ask for others' permission to do something. A person who does not believe in himself is always a hypocrite. It is a rumor. He is a year old. It is active. Even if he doesn't steal for himself, he passes by looking for a thief. He doesn't want to face the truth and thinks that he might do something bad if he gets a chance. People who don't trust themselves have a lot of respect for thieves and extortioners. They like to pretend things have happened, but they don't want to stand up to the truth when they know it. Such people lead their lives according to other people's wishes. If others say it is good, they are happy. If others say it is bad, they are upset. They need to hear other people's opinions to be happy or not happy. Because they do that for themselves, they want their partners to do the same, so they often lack self-confidence. They also consider self-confident people as bad people. I have two experiences related to this. It was in the 1990s. I was a night student and he was coming home from school, so I got off the bus, and when I was walking quickly to the inner road, he noticed a woman following me quickly, but she couldn't catch up to me because I was walking fast. When I had a short distance to reach my house, I saw two people standing in the dark smoking cigarettes. As soon as I got to my house and started knocking, I heard the sound of crying behind me, and immediately I remembered the woman who was walking behind me, and I quickly ran to the house. The woman did not scream because she was trying to grab the mobile phone, but because they bit her hand. Because the mobile phone was corded, she put her hand in the cord. In this situation, I noticed two things. Why didn't the woman quickly turn on the phone, and why didn't people reach her quickly after hearing her screams? But if they wanted to reach her quickly, there were houses that were very close. When I think about it, I am forced to think that the thief is more feared than the creator. The robber herself was not willing to reveal the thieves. If she was willing to accuse them, I was ready to testify. Well, she did not do that because she knew the local custom, because people chose to listen and accept instead of condemning something inappropriate. So when I think that a person who has not cooperated with a thief, if he gets the chance, he will not steal. A person who does not believe in himself cannot be ready to humiliate and isolate his wife. Instead, he prefers to live with the thief while giving respect. In any case, anyone who associates with a thief is not trustworthy. The second encounter was when we were queuing up to board a city bus. A tall man was queuing up behind me because he smelled a bit of alcohol on him, so I was forced to turn my back against him. He heard me angrily scolding the woman, and when he turned to him, he found that he was holding my purse in his hand. I didn't say anything. I went up one step to the stairs of the bus and gave him what is called a scissor slap in our language, and he threw my purse away. Some criticize me, "How do you dare a thief?" Another one threatens me, saying, "There are many of them, so they don't take revenge." Out of a whole bus, he was the only vehicle supporting me. I remember that when I was a soldier, he drove a military car called Oral, and I think that's why he was not afraid. As a majority, he would not have tried to support me alone. If we are satisfied, people are robbed in the midst of people, not in the forest. Basically, people fear those who are not afraid, but if we look at the numbers, the number of people who are not thieves is more than the number of thieves. But a few thieves are doing what they like boldly, blocked by people, not hiding in other things. A person must trust himself to call even a thief by his name. If he does not trust himself, he is afraid to call the thief by his name. He is afraid of two things. First, he restrains himself with a weak belief that the thief will take revenge on him, and second, he does not want to expose the thief because he thinks that he will steal from me tomorrow. The strange thing is that the thief does not think like that. If he finds something to steal, he does not hesitate to steal it because this person was in my debt. Because a thief does not care about race, religion, country, relatives, and so on. Trusting yourself and not trusting yourself may not necessarily be related to stealing or not stealing. There are many things that require trust: trusting the word, trust in love, loyalty to the country. Confide in a friend. Confidence in a colleague, trusting children, trusting parents is not just trusting one or two, but it is a message that shows that if we are honest with ourselves, we can also trust others. You don't need other people's confirmation to be trusted. If a person is honest with himself, no one can prove him that he is trusted but his own conscience. One of the biggest things that prevent people from trusting themselves and others is fear. If a person can overcome fear, he can do many things. The reason people are forced to live in defeat while being able to win many things is because they are afraid. It is not because they cannot distinguish between what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. He says that the main reason man is forced to cooperate with evil is to protect himself. I once discussed this matter with my boss because of work. When my colleagues and I are asked to achieve things that are difficult to achieve on time, this question is not conclusive. I have not been able to forget his answer to this day, "Ezek, why do you put undue pressure on us when everything is clearly known and nothing new has happened, Ezek?" At this time, I said, "It's because I have to save myself so that you don't think that I don't know everything that you said." So, a boss who is said to be an expert sometimes makes inappropriate decisions on his employees in order to save himself. Executive teams often have a hot potato saying. A hot potato is like passing things on to the next person in order to avoid getting burned. People who do that have the power to fix a lot of things if they want to, but because they don't want to do anything, they are seen hurting others unjustly. The reason for this is self-doubt. The origin of distrust is still fear. After all, if everyone was honest with himself, there would be no need for laws to be made for different things in life. It forces us to think that the biggest reason for the law is because people don't trust themselves and they can't do the right thing for themselves until someone else confirms it. In this book, we read an article about being among the few, so the few people we are talking about are trustworthy, both for themselves and for other people, so they are not blamed for this. Their name is never associated with distrust, they just do their job and they don't have time to think about fear, so they are not prone to such mundane things. He thinks how good it is to be among the few for everything. Oftentimes, lawmakers want other people to obey the laws they make. but they are not willing to respect themselves. Once I heard such news and I was very surprised to know that it was the season when most of the so-called illegal construction houses were demolished in Addis Ababa and the surrounding area. When I heard in the media that there were members of the House of Representatives among the people who protested the demolition of an illegal building, I felt ashamed. Because when a representative of the people sits in the parliament and makes laws during the day, it is shocking to hear that there is a representative of the people who conducts illegal construction at night. It is known that the main reason for this is not trusting oneself. A person who does not believe in himself cannot be trusted in the laws he has made. It's common to see a police car parked in a traffic stop sign. But it is not added that only police cars are allowed in the place where it is forbidden to stop. If you stop without a permit, it means that you have broken the law. But it is only because they are the plaintiffs who have not been charged. The reason why a person does not respect the law by which he is governed is because he is not honest with himself. It is difficult for a person who does not trust himself to blame or accuse other people for not trusting him. So to fix even a broken thing, you need to be honest with yourself first. How many people know that the laws that the governments make are first broken by the legislators? For example, if we look at the actual situation of our country, there is a clearly written law that says land cannot be sold or exchanged. When I sell the land, he leaves it. The people who facilitate the sale of land against the law are experts in the law. It is people who know about the law who give advice on how to break the law indirectly. How to legalize the violated law is another law enforcement body. Public offices that promote the badness of bribery widely participate in bribery because they do not trust themselves. If everyone learned to rely on himself and could trust himself, he would be able to leave and enter at his own time without anyone's control. Many laws and regulations are rooted in people's inability to trust themselves. If people had the desire to rely on themselves, a lot of pressure could be reduced. People can obey their own plans only when they are able to trust themselves. It turns out that most people don't have a problem with planning. But they have a problem in achieving their plans. The biggest reason for that is because they are unable to obey their plans. But few are able to do that, so they don't have to stop themselves from achieving all the things they want. Because they were able to do that, they were able to be a blessing to other people. It is no secret that the living conditions of this whole world are improving from time to time due to the sacrifices made by a few faithful people. Because those people are true to themselves, they don't shy away from achieving whatever they want. It is easy to imagine how good it would be if a person practiced self-reliance. Self-awareness is important for self-reliance. No one can trust himself. Self-awareness means recognizing one's inner identity. A person who does not know his character, needs, thoughts, beliefs, position and philosophy of life will find it difficult to trust himself. A person who can trust himself may not find it too difficult to trust someone else. I must be clear that self-reliance does not mean selfishness. In self-reliance there is trust in others. If it is known that there is harm to others in self-reliance, a person who is well-versed in self-reliance can consider trusting as a part of life just by looking at it. It is good to start everything from yourself. A person who knows well what it means to trust has no difficulty in trusting or being trusted. He can easily believe it. So is easy trust. Above all, trust is very valuable. Just as believing is the responsibility of the believer, trusting becomes the responsibility of the believer. Both are interrelated and cannot be separated from each other. One does not contradict the other. For the success of both, the first thing that needs to be given the greatest attention is self-awareness. Anyone who does not know himself well can find it difficult to trust or believe other people. Therefore, I must emphasize that self-awareness is a priority. Self-awareness starts with small things, even from what we eat and drink, we need to know well. A person should be able to distinguish between what he wears and what he eats that suits him well. If people can do that, they can have an easier life. Many times, when people try everything they have seen on their own, they get into an unnecessary loss. It is necessary to identify yourself in advance in order to be aware of those different needs. I had a problem until recently. I have a hard time recognizing that when I'm addicted to coffee. By some chance, when I bought the coffee and drank it and those bad symptoms left me, I realized that it was a coffee addiction. But people who know themselves well do not have this problem. You can easily identify what you want and what you need and take action. By the way, what we need and want may not be the same. When we say what we need, we can never replace it with other things, but what we want can be found or not depending on the situation. Even if we don't get what we need, it is not convenient to replace it with something else. In the same way, when a person is walking barefoot, the most important thing he needs is shoes, even though it is possible to change that motorcycle into shoes with the help of a motorcycle. Therefore, most of the things we need are freely given to us by the Creator. For example, air, water, earth, sky, sea and natural features are all necessary for human beings. However, human beings are not things that can be achieved only by their own power and ability because they want. This means that the things we need be replaced by other similar things, but the things we need cannot be replaced or avoided by any miracle. In other words, we can call this situation the things that need to be prioritized. We can say that a person knows himself only when he is able to identify the things he needs in his life based on what he needs and wants. As it was tried to see in the chapter called Living in a Broad Way, it is observed that many people are distracted from the things they need now and focus only on the things they want in the future. This is a completely wrong approach. A person should focus on what he needs now and not live only for what he wants in the future. Although it is natural for people to want to live for what they want in order to achieve what you want in the future, it is necessary to recognize the things you need today and to live and own them. The main reason why self-awareness and trust is said to be important is why one who knows himself can know what he wants. A person who can trust himself can trust people. He understands well what the benefit of trusting is and what is the loss of not trusting, so he can reconcile both things and put them together. These three things are the most important things for human beings: self-awareness, self-reliance, and the ability to trust others. Where these three things are fulfilled, life will be easy and exciting, not boring and full of bitterness. Once a colleague of mine went to Harar for work and stayed for 2 years, asking for a change and returning to Addis Ababa. As soon as we met and talked, I told him that the transfer was successful soon. When I asked him how in Digame, at that time he said, anyone who has lived in Harare for more than 2 years will get used to it, but no one wants to return to the center of the country. I asked him what was different in Digame. Everything is possible, love is love, especially there is no such thing as lies and pretending. Everything is so clear that a person who goes there learns the behavior of that environment and cannot retain his own behavior. If I want to return to the center of the country after some time, it will be difficult for me to get used to the behavior of the center of the country from scratch. So many people who have lived there for more than 2 years do not want to return, he assured me. This means that people can easily attract people and adapt them to their own identity because they know what it means to believe and be trusted. Their behavior is said to be good and easy to get used to, so no one hesitates not to get used to it. I have a known habit in my own life. And because I have many friends, there are times when my friends change each other and don't talk to each other. Everyone will find me in their own time. They tell me their own secret. No one will tell me that my secret will be wasted. Because I am honest, I don't share one password with another. In my own belief, I don't do that because I believe that it is wrong to tell someone's password. But he will learn from them. I have never met a person who blocked me saying he was friends with my rival. No one has changed my mind. But I don't see this kind of thing in other people. When I think about the secret that both people who don't like or agree with each other become my friend at the same time, I think it's because I was the secret keeper of both sides. I didn't get along with my mother when he was a baby. The reason is because my father had 2 idols. I follow my father wherever he goes, send errands, eat, drink milk, but my other brothers don't do that. My father loved me so much that he preferred my death to those who hated me. Therefore, I will not come and tell Nate what I saw or heard in another house. Therefore, because I am faithful to all love me equally. My mother also hates me for being partial to others. They did that because my behavior is different from others, but I didn't save Nate's secret either. No one else is afraid that something that happened to me will be felt by me. Even after I grew up and started living my own life, people were not afraid to share their personal secrets with me. In connection with this, I would like to share with you an incident that made me laugh until today. We were 3 very close friends, 2 of them lived in a band house, and I lived in a rented house by myself. On some occasion, the 2 of them had a fight and quarreled. One of them has moved out and he has started living in a rented house. They are almost completely unreconciled with the package. They had a fight because of a woman, a maid who was cooking for them and washing their clothes. In this case, one of them plays like a picture. One of our friends is lucky because he starts another affair with the worker as usual and leaves when I get to know him. At this time our friend who was the owner of the house and married the worker continues to live in the same house with the worker. When we did that, I was worried that this faithful friend of ours was not participating with us, and I thought that I would solve their problem in the end. Isaac, when are you going to stay like this? Wouldn't it be good if we finally solved the problem? I said to him, hey, I don't go to his house, but Asuka will come to my house. I said, why are you lying? I said, it's not like him, because I'm coming where he's not. He told me to rest. It is necessary to be clear in order to trust yourself, because a person who is not clear to himself cannot be clear to others, so he must first be clear and compassionate to himself. Anyone who can do that will be wanted by people. He won't wander around looking for people. Because the main thing that is needed for human beings to live together is with him, he is a giver and not a receiver. Most of the people do not like to give, but to receive, so it is inevitable that they will go towards something that is given. As a result, those people will inevitably go to him in search of him. In addition to self-reliance and self-awareness, it is important to learn to give priority to what is important. As the main theme of this book tries to explore, it is very important to be able to set priorities apart from other things and give them the right attention at the right time. It is known that there are many things that are necessary for human beings, but for many things that should be found first, they must be identified in a special way. Otherwise, life would be very difficult to fill or bridge the gap between people's needs and wants. Priorities may change from time to time depending on their nature. But it is important to choose something that moves with the times and prioritize. The things that need to be prioritized are the things that we have identified as the main things, and the things that are closest to them should be placed in the first row and given priority according to their order. It is necessary to take care of them and reach the goal. If it is not possible to do so, it can lead to confusion and instability in life. Such things are applied in almost every sector. For example, it applies to social life, education, work, business, and health-related issues. Since everything is necessary, it is impossible to do everything at the same time, so it is necessary to deal with the priority. If we look at the lives of many successful people, they are able to live a successful life because they prioritize the things that need to be done in order, not because they performed a special miracle. What makes them different is that they give value to each thing and assign them to their proper place. Doing things at the right place and time while giving proper attention, not taking more than enough time to work alone cannot make it effective. It is the poor who work long hours without any breaks than the rich. It is possible to be successful like working long hours, but there are more successful people than unsuccessful people. It is not because people who live below what they deserve do not have a work culture, as it is said without enough research, but it is common to see people who are able to work and work many hours a day, but whose living conditions are below that of many people. This situation is not divided between educated and uneducated, but it is seen in all sections of the society. Because this kind of education is not taught in school, no one can know it without seeking it through their own efforts. As we have already tried to see, it is known that many things are the result of practice. It is not uncommon for many people to repeat what they have seen and try to see something else. Therefore, the origin of all success and failure starts from our environment. This means that if the people who came before us were successful in everything and lived a good life, the people who come after us in that environment have almost the chance to be like them. But on the contrary, if the people who were in the place before are not open and do not show the desire to change, even the children who are born in the area do not have the chance to be like that. This is something that came with the nature of inheriting practices, but naturally everyone was equal. Sometimes I feel uncomfortable when I hear people's comments and read articles about our work culture. It's what all the articles and commenters are saying: our work culture is weak, we have trouble getting up in the morning. I don't like the words "we despise work" at all. For various reasons, when I get up at 9 o'clock in the evening and start the road, or when the bus is going to pick up someone, I find that many people are doing the work before me. When I sell, when I buy, everything is presented and criticized. It is not fair to say that we don't have a work culture in a city where there are so many municipal workers who get up at 10 o'clock and go to their work. It's not that we don't have a work culture, but it must be said that we don't get good results because we only work hard. Because we are living in a city where all these people are working hard, and at the same time, when we see the number of poor people, it is difficult to say that work is being done. However, work is being done, but the work is done only by labor. Knowledge is not a job. It is not only energy that brings change, but when I work with the help of knowledge, it makes it possible to bring change easily. From what I read, I would like to share with you that there were two people who cut wood for the bakery. Both of them were assigned the same wood and the same time. When they come in the morning, he cuts it, but the amount of wood he offers is equal to the amount of wood you offer. How could I be like this? Asked the successful woodcutter. When I answered, I spend 2/3 of the full time he gives me for the job, I spend 2/3 of the time preparing for the job, I sharpen my saw, and I work on the remaining 1/3. We can learn something from this man. He reminds us that we should identify what is needed for work and make adequate preparations for it. People who know about their work are always successful. It's not just because they put in so many hours at work that help them succeed. Art means to be able to complete the necessary things for the work without having to create another miracle, and to be able to achieve the necessary results in a certain number of hours. If you ask us what are the things required for the job, the answer is complete preparation and the knowledge required for the job. The energy required for the work. It is to have the materials needed for the work and the full attention needed for the work. If a person fulfills these and starts his work, there can be no reason why he cannot do effective work. I have noticed that they are a little closer to this. For 2 years, I had the opportunity to see many of the people in our city, Addis Ababa. Most of the following are the same with a few exceptions. They do so not only because their work is the same, but also because they all go to work without adequate preparation. The hammer is the biggest tool used by all the tamers I have observed. I know that a jackhammer is an important tool for loosening or tightening something. However, using a hammer to loosen a screw comes from ignorance about the job, not because the truth is that the role of a hammer is great in that area. This causes unnecessary losses to both parties. It will cause loss of manpower of the owner to both the owner, and it will cause loss of property to the owner. All of them have the same characteristic. They only denigrate the work done by the other, and they do not show the basis of something better. If someone does well, they are not interested in gaining experience. They don't spend time to get more knowledge that will help them in their work. In this day and age, a person who wants to complete the skills needed for a job doesn't necessarily have to attend school. Instead, allocating no more than an hour a day to browsing the internet that goes with the job can be enough. In less than an hour, he can do effective work with the experience he gains good reputation and increases his demand. If we want to look at it simply, shaking a car body with a hammer can distort the shape of another car body. Because a hammer is a material that is heavy in nature, it does not hit one place and leave the other safely. Since it is not, it means that it affects everyone equally. Even if there is a car part that needs a hammer, after removing it from the main body of the car, using the hammer only for it, but trying to solve the problem with a hammer while the main car body is still on, is definitely a loss, not a profit. I tried to browse the internet wondering how other professionals would solve this kind of problem, but I found it. Our owners use two things to loosen the rusty or twisted bolt that they crush with a hammer. One is to cut the thing that needs to be loosened, and the rest is made to come out with a chisel without touching the main bolt. They do not cause harm. They do not question the quality of their work. Doing so will benefit them for two things. One is they will promote their technical skills. The other will be appreciated for being able to solve the problem without exposing the property to another risk, and next, they will get more customers through the client. When an additional customer comes, he comes not empty-handed, but with money, so he also gets money. So, I think it's easy to say that we don't like work and we can't be efficient people because we don't do it with the help of knowledge and technical skills. Therefore, I believe that it is important to focus on the solution of the problem. The problem that can be solved is that people can do more with knowledge than they do with paper. I said this because I have a reason. It is known that there are many technical and professional institutions in our country. It is known that they release many graduates to work every year. Universities are like that, but they don't come out with the knowledge required by employers, but most of them come out with good papers. I think that's why fresh graduates don't try to add more knowledge except to repeat what they were doing when they joined the world of work. Offices focus only on what is already common in the industry and do not want to come up with knowledge-based improvements. Their reason is that they are afraid that something will go wrong somewhere in the development process, so they won't allow it to be changed. There can be no new things that will come in the things that have been. It is because of people trying new things that everything has changed and the door has been opened for many things to be done easily today. The world has grown not just by waiting for what happened once. It should be known that it is important to look at you and be yourself, that is, to carefully evaluate the good things and the bad things, and to choose the best without precedent, and to accustom yourself to changes. To be oneself does not mean to stick to one thing or one philosophy of life as much as possible, but to have a progressive idea. In order to do so, it is necessary not only to follow those who have gone before as a shadow, but to study all the important things. It is necessary to accept change and prepare for its implementation. Standing still is not recommended. Therefore, even the offices should focus on the search for the person who has the experience. As for how to find a knowledgeable person, it is necessary to follow an approach based on practice rather than chasing papers and numbers. Of course, even though the support of government laws is needed to do that, it is possible to create appropriate laws and regulations by creating positive pressures. As everything is good when I can keep up with the times, even if they are laws, they should not be stagnant. Unnecessary articles should be revised every time and replaced with important and needed articles. Even experts should reduce their focus on paper and focus on searching for equivalent knowledge from the paper. At one time when I was in college, I studied with many government employees and they met in class 3 or 2 days a week. When I ask them why they do that because we are close to each other, they say, we need the paper, not the knowledge. So the knowledge they claim to have is the experience of the previous people, not science-based knowledge. It seems that what opened the door for the people to think like that is because they see the attitude of knowledge in their work and the way it works is based on experience and not knowledge. It is true that they saw that I was looking for a paper for development and not for knowledge, so they focused on getting their paper for years. It may not be their fault that they did that, but it is because the lawmaker in the employer's office did not choose the right thing. Everything is beautiful in its place. It is important to use the right thing in the right place. In order to investigate and solve a problem, one must first believe that the problem exists. Because what is said to be an office problem or a personal problem today will not turn out to be a national problem tomorrow. It is known that our country is in a lot of crisis at the present time. It is believed that there are some who think that the crisis has just happened. But to tell the truth, the sunset of a country, let alone an individual band, does not happen. Things are being accepted and expanded, which are enough to be recognized in time. However, before all problems grew and became national problems, they were individual and institutional problems. If there were individuals and institutions that believed in them, life would have been solved in time and easily fixed. However, most of the individuals and institutions live for appearances and not for their own truth, so they choose to cover up the surface with reports even though they know there is a problem. They don't want to tell the truth and solve the problem. The reason they give for doing this is to protect the secret. If we ask from whom the password is protected, they are from all the parties who think that they are our competitors. If a problem needs to be solved, it is necessary to give proper recognition to the problem. When I acknowledge the problem, many of them choose not to solve the problem and prevent the secret from being revealed, because something that is said to be secret may be revealed. By doing that, after the problems accumulate, it is no longer just a problem of institutions and individuals, it is a problem of the country, and it is putting the country into trouble. Therefore, if it is believed that it is necessary to solve problems by knowing them, it means that it is necessary to call the problems by their names without covering them up. It is necessary to get rid of any unimportant habitual things that hinder us from calling problems by their name. If we look at some of them, the culture of considering what is not secret as secret should be gone. Another thing is to be able to overcome the fear of change. When we talk about change, it is not possible to change only in height, so it is necessary to be ready to accept change in any direction. If this can be done, problems will not continue to worsen due to fear of change. You will get a solution in time. Therefore, there is a need for improvement in all aspects of our privacy practices. It is said that once two thieves repeatedly went to a man's house and put their hands through the hole of the house and stole the man's grain. A person who was annoyed by the thieves prepared a cool knife and closed the house outside and started sitting through the hole where the thieves always put their hands, and the thieves came waiting for their time as usual, and when one of the thieves raised his hand as usual, the owner of the house who was sitting inside cut his finger with the knife he prepared first. He folded his hand and remained silent. It is said that when the second thief cut off his hand, when he saw his finger cut off, the first thief said it was a secret. When there is too much encryption, it does more harm than good. It makes things difficult to make timely decisions. Therefore, using encryption in moderation not only helps to solve the problems in a house without spreading, but also has a high role in closing the door of illegals. Criminals often use the following cryptic reasons to threaten individuals and institutions and follow procedures to gain benefits. Something that is not already surrounded by many secrets cannot be exposed to this kind of danger. Especially when the situation is at the institutional level and at the individual level, the resulting social, the economic and political losses are not equal. Therefore, organizations should not forget the big picture in order to save small things. Although the importance of maintaining secrecy is not something that can be questioned, preventing all harmful things from being turned into advantages in the name of secrecy outweighs the benefits. Since no one wants to be harmed, it is not recommended to take steps to prevent unnecessary things, whether it is out or not. Self-awareness and self-reliance are enough to prevent private encryption. A self-aware and self-confident person can distinguish between encrypted and non-cryptic things, so he doesn't call everything a mass encryption. By placing everything in its proper place according to its importance, it does not put itself in more than appropriate tension by collecting and keeping the unwanted clutter. If it is the case, the internal procedure policy can be scanned in the same way.